The young salesman finally reached Marcus after checking his appearance in a mirror one last time. His name tag read Derek Peterson, and his smile looked practiced and fake. He cleared his throat before speaking in a tone that suggested he was doing Marcus a favor by talking to him at all. "Good morning, sir. Can I help you with something?" Derek asked. His eyes quickly scanned Marcus from head to toe, taking in the casual clothes and simple shoes. The judgment was instant and obvious. Marcus had seen this look many times before in high-end stores and exclusive restaurants. It was the look that said, "You don't belong here." Marcus smiled warmly and extended his hand for a handshake. "Good morning, Derek. I'm just looking around at your beautiful cars here." Derek hesitated for a moment before shaking hands quickly, like he was afraid of catching something. His grip was weak, and he pulled his hand back, immediately wiping it on his pants when he thought Marcus wasn't looking. "Yes, well, these are very expensive vehicles, sir. Our financing options require excellent credit and substantial down payments." Derek's voice carried a warning tone. He positioned himself between Marcus and the car as if protecting it. "Perhaps you'd like to see our promotional brochures first. They have all the prices listed." Other customers continued receiving different treatment just a few feet away. An older white man in a golf outfit was being offered fresh coffee and pastries. Another customer got a personal tour of the latest models with the senior sales manager. They laughed and chatted like old friends while Derek watched Marcus like a security guard. "I appreciate the information, but I prefer to see the cars up close," Marcus replied calmly. He stepped around Derek to get a better look at the engine of a silver coupe. Derek followed closely, almost stepping on Marcus's heels. The discomfort was intentional and obvious. Every move was designed to make Marcus feel unwelcome. From his office, Richard Stevenson continued watching the interaction. He made a phone call, speaking quietly while keeping his eyes on Marcus. Soon 2 security guards appeared near the entrance, pretending to check their phones, but clearly positioned to watch the showroom. The message was clear even without words being spoken. Marcus noticed everything but kept his composure. He had faced worse discrimination while building his businesses. Banks that refused loans until they saw his financial statements. Suppliers who demanded cash up front until they learned his company's reputation. This was just another test, and he had learned to pass them all with dignity. "Sir, these cars start at $200,000. Derek said loudly enough for others to hear. Several customers turned to look, some smirking at what they saw as an obvious mismatch. "We typically work with established professionals and business owners. May I ask what you do for a living?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus could have ended this charade immediately by revealing the truth, but he wanted to see how far they would go. "I'm in business," he answered simply. Derek's eyebrows rose skeptically. What kind of business exactly? The tone suggested he didn't believe Marcus was in any business at all. A woman in designer clothes walked past, and Derek immediately brightened. "Excuse me just one moment," he said to Marcus before rushing to greet the new arrival. "Mrs. Wellington, how wonderful to see you again. Let me get you some champagne while you look at our new arrivals." The contrast in treatment was painful to watch. Marcus used the moment alone to take photos of the cars with his phone. He wasn't just browsing, he was documenting his first day as owner. These pictures would remind him later of how the dealership operated before his changes. Derek noticed the phone and hurried back, looking alarmed. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you not to take photos. This is private property." Derek's friendly mask had slipped completely now. His real feelings showed through anger mixed with dismissal. He stood with his hands on his hips, trying to look authoritative despite being half Marcus's age. The situation was escalating exactly as Marcus had expected. Marcus Thompson walked through the parking lot of Premier Motors, one of the most expensive car dealerships in the city. The morning sun reflected off the windows of dozens of luxury vehicles. His sneakers made soft sounds on the concrete as he approached the main entrance. At 32 years old, Marcus had built several successful businesses, but nobody here knew that yet. He wore simple clothes today: a blue polo shirt, dark jeans, and clean white sneakers. His choice was deliberate. Marcus wanted to see how the dealership treated regular customers, not just wealthy-looking ones. The building stood tall and modern, all glass and steel, representing success and luxury. Large signs promised the best customer service in town. As Marcus pulled open the heavy glass door, cool air conditioning hit his face. The showroom was enormous, filled with cars that cost more than most people's houses. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting sparkling light on polished marble floors. The smell was distinct, new leather mixed with expensive air freshener and fresh coffee brewing somewhere. Salespeople in expensive suits moved between the cars like sharks in water. They talked with customers, pointed at features, and made deals. Marcus noticed how they dressed: perfectly pressed shirts, silk ties, shiny shoes. Everyone looked like they belonged in a fashion magazine. He stood out in his casual clothes, and he knew it. Marcus began walking slowly through the showroom. He stopped at a bright red sports car, admiring its sleek lines. The price tag made most people gasp, but Marcus just nodded thoughtfully. He had done his homework on every model in this dealership. He knew their features, their prices, and their profit margins, but he kept this knowledge to himself. A young salesman watched Marcus from across the room. The man looked fresh out of college, eager to make sales and impress his boss. He kept glancing at Marcus, then at his manager, then back at Marcus. It was clear he was getting instructions through looks and subtle gestures. Finally, he straightened his tie and walked over. The showroom buzzed with activity. Other customers, mostly older men in business suits, received immediate attention. Salespeople offered them coffee, comfortable chairs, and detailed presentations. They laughed at their jokes and treated them like old friends. Marcus watched these interactions while pretending to study the car in front of him. Behind the main reception desk sat the manager's office. Through the glass walls, Marcus could see a man in his 50s with silver hair and an expensive watch. This was Richard Stevenson, the dealership manager. His reputation preceded him: 15 years of running Premier Motors with an iron fist. He was known for his high sales numbers and strict standards. Richard's eyes found Marcus in the crowd. His expression changed slightly, a frown appearing between his eyebrows. He set down his coffee cup and stood up, adjusting his suit jacket. Marcus pretended not to notice, but he could feel the manager's gaze following him as he moved to examine another vehicle. The dealership's hierarchy was clear. Senior salespeople wore the most expensive suits and handled the wealthiest clients. Junior staff dealt with walk-ins and phone inquiries. Support staff stayed in the background, filing papers and answering phones. Everyone knew their place, and Richard Stevenson made sure it stayed that way. Marcus touched the hood of a black luxury sedan. The metal was cool and smooth under his fingers. He had owned similar cars before, but that wasn't important right now. What mattered was seeing this dealership's true character. His accountant had called this morning confirming the final payment had gone through. The papers were signed, but nobody here knew that yet. The contrast between Marcus and the typical Premier Motors customer was obvious. While others flashed expensive watches and designer clothes, Marcus kept things simple. His success didn't need to be displayed. He had learned long ago that real power came from knowledge and preparation, not from showing off. Today would prove that lesson once again. Richard Stevenson finally decided to leave his office and handle the situation personally. He straightened his silk tie and grabbed his jacket from the chair. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the marble floor as he walked with the authority of someone who had run this dealership for 15 years. His gray hair was perfectly styled, and his gold watch caught the light as he moved. Everything about Richard screamed success and power. He had started as a salesman and worked his way up to manager. Now he protected his dealership like a fortress, keeping out anyone he deemed unworthy. As Richard approached, he made eye contact with Derek and gave him a small nod. The young salesman looked relieved to have backup and stepped aside. Richard's smile was cold and professional as he positioned himself directly in front of Marcus, blocking his view of the cars. Good morning, I'm Richard Stevenson, the general manager here. I understand you're browsing our collection today. His tone was polite but carried an edge. He stood with his chest out and shoulders back, making himself appear larger. The message was clear, this was his territory. Marcus met his gaze steadily. Good morning, Mr. Stevenson. Yes, I'm very interested in your vehicles. You have an impressive dealership here. He kept his voice friendly and calm, refusing to be intimidated. Richard's eyes narrowed, slightly surprised that Marcus knew his name. Thank you, we work hard to maintain certain standards here at Premier Motors. Richard emphasized the word standards while looking at Marcus's casual clothes. We cater to a very exclusive clientele. Professional athletes, executives, celebrities. People who can afford our level of luxury. The insult was wrapped in professional language, but the meaning was clear. Richard was telling Marcus he didn't belong with their exclusive customers. Other employees had started watching the interaction, pretending to work while keeping their eyes on the situation. I understand completely. Standards are important in any business. Marcus smiled slightly. Tell me, Mr. Stevenson, how long have you been managing this dealership? The question seemed to catch Richard off guard. He puffed up with pride at the opportunity to talk about himself. 15 successful years. I've built this place into the premier luxury car destination in the state. We're number one in sales for 3 brands. Richard's voice filled with satisfaction. I personally oversee every aspect of operations here. Nothing happens without my knowledge. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. That's quite an achievement. And in those 15 years, have you ever had any complaints about customer treatment? The question made Richard stiffen. His face flushed slightly as he sensed a challenge to his authority. Our customer satisfaction ratings are excellent. We maintain the highest standards of service for our valued clients. Richard's tone turned defensive. Of course, we have to be selective about who we serve. Not everyone is suited for this level of luxury. It's nothing personal, just business. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus remained calm while Richard grew more agitated. The manager clearly wasn't used to being questioned, especially by someone he saw as beneath him. Sweat started to form on Richard's forehead, despite the cool air conditioning. I see. And how do you determine who is suited for your luxury vehicles? Marcus asked innocently. Richard's face reddened further. He glanced around at the gathering employees, realizing the conversation was attracting attention. His control over the situation was slipping. Experience. You can tell when someone is serious about buying versus just wasting time. Richard's voice carried frustration. We're very busy here. Our time is valuable. We focus on real customers who can actually afford our products. Marcus pulled out his phone and checked something on the screen. Speaking of time, mine is valuable too. I notice your sales figures for last quarter were down 12%. That must be concerning for someone with 15 years of experience. Richard's mouth opened in shock. That information wasn't public. His mind raced, trying to figure out how this casual-dressed stranger knew internal company data. The confident facade he had built started cracking. Other employees exchanged worried glances, sensing their manager's discomfort. Marcus walked past Richard toward the limited edition sports car displayed in the center of the showroom. It was the crown jewel of the dealership, a rare model with only 50 made worldwide. The blue paint seemed to glow under the lights, and the leather interior was hand-stitched by Italian craftsmen. Richard followed quickly, his face showing alarm. Sir, that vehicle is not for public viewing. It's already been reserved for a special client. His voice cracked slightly with stress. This car was his pride and joy, the symbol of the dealership's prestige. He positioned himself protectively near the driver's door. It's beautiful, isn't it? Marcus ran his hand along the smooth hood. I've read about this model. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. Carbon fiber body. Each one personally inspected by the manufacturer's CEO. His knowledge surprised Richard, who expected ignorance from someone dressed so casually. Yes, well, as I said, it's not available. Please don't touch the vehicle. Richard's professional mask was slipping completely now. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled out a handkerchief to wipe the spot where Marcus had touched. The gesture was deliberately insulting, meant to shame Marcus into leaving. Instead, Marcus walked around the car, admiring it from every angle. Other customers had stopped their browsing to watch the scene unfold. Some whispered to each other, making bets on how long before security would escort the young man out. The tension in the showroom grew thicker by the second. "Actually, I'd like to sit inside. Feel the quality of the interior." Marcus reached for the door handle. Richard's hand shot out to stop him, his face now bright red with anger. "Absolutely not. These seats are worth more than most people's annual salary. I cannot allow just anyone to damage them." The words "just anyone" hung in the air like a slap. Several employees winced at their manager's obvious discrimination. A few customers looked uncomfortable and turned away. But Richard was too angry to notice or care about the reactions around him. His control was completely gone. Marcus remained perfectly calm. "I understand your concern, but I assure you I'll be very careful." He opened the door before Richard could physically stop him and slid into the driver's seat. The leather was soft as butter, and the cockpit wrapped around him like it was custom-made. Richard's face turned purple with rage. "Get out of that car immediately. This is unacceptable behavior. You're trespassing on private property." His voice echoed through the showroom, causing everyone to stop and stare. The professional businessman had transformed into an angry bully. The seat feels perfect. German engineering at its finest. Marcus adjusted the steering wheel and checked the mirrors, acting like he owned the place, which technically he did, though nobody knew it yet. He pressed a few buttons on the dashboard, watching Richard's blood pressure rise with each movement. "That's it, I'm calling security." Richard pulled out his phone with shaking hands. "You've crossed the line. I want you removed from this property immediately and banned from ever returning." He started dialing while glaring at Marcus with pure hatred in his eyes. Marcus finally looked directly at Richard. "Are you sure you want to do that? Once you make that call, there's no taking it back." His calm question made Richard pause. Something in Marcus's confidence seemed different from typical troublemakers. But pride and anger overruled caution. "Save your threats for someone who cares. I've dealt with people like you before." Richard pressed the call button. "Security to the main showroom immediately. We have a trespasser who refuses to leave." His voice carried across the dealership, ensuring everyone heard his power play. 2 large security guards appeared within minutes. They approached the car with stern expressions, ready to forcefully remove Marcus if necessary. Richard stood behind them with his arms crossed, looking triumphant. He had won, or so he thought. His 15 years of authority would not be challenged by some nobody off the street. Marcus slowly got out of the car, but showed no fear. He straightened his polo shirt and faced the guards with dignity. "Gentlemen, I understand you're just doing your job, but perhaps you should wait a moment before taking any action you might regret." His calm words made them hesitate, looking between him and Richard for guidance. The security guard stood uncertain while Richard gestured angrily at Marcus. "What are you waiting for? Remove this man from the premises immediately." His voice had lost all professional tone, replaced by raw emotion. The entire dealership had stopped to watch the scene unfold. Marcus reached into his pocket slowly so the guards wouldn't think he was pulling out a weapon. "Before this goes any further, I need to make one phone call. It will only take a moment." He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts, while Richard rolled his eyes dramatically. More delays and games. "Officers, please escort him out now." Richard's face was still flushed with anger. He wanted this embarrassment over quickly so he could return to his normal routine of controlling everything. The guards moved closer to Marcus, preparing to grab his arms. "William Hartford, please. Tell him Marcus Thompson is calling." Marcus spoke into his phone while maintaining eye contact with Richard. The manager's expression changed instantly at the mention of the owner's name. His anger mixed with confusion, and a hint of worry crept into his eyes. The guards noticed their manager's reaction and paused. Richard tried to maintain his authority, but his voice wavered slightly. "You're wasting everyone's time with your games. Mr. Hartford doesn't take calls from random people." But doubt had entered his mind, causing his hands to fidget nervously. Marcus listened to the phone, then smiled. "Yes, Mr. Hartford, I'm here at the dealership now. Actually, I'm having an interesting experience with your management team." He paused, listening to the response. "No, everything is fine. Just some confusion about customer service policies. Yes, I'll wait for you." Richard's face went from red to pale white in seconds. His mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. How did this casually dressed man have the owner's direct number? Why was Mr. Hartford coming to the dealership? The pieces didn't fit together in his ordered world. "You're bluffing. This is some kind of trick." Richard's voice had lost its commanding tone. He looked around at his employees, who were watching with fascination. Some had started recording with their phones, sensing this was no ordinary confrontation. The power dynamics in the room were shifting. Marcus put his phone away calmly. "Gentlemen, I suggest we all wait a few minutes. Mr. Hartford is on his way, and I'm sure he'll want to resolve this situation personally." He leaned against the sports car casually while Richard stood frozen with indecision. The security guards looked between Marcus and Richard, unsure what to do. Their manager, who always barked orders with absolute certainty, now seemed lost. They had never seen him this uncertain before. The silence in the showroom was deafening as everyone waited to see what would happen next. Minutes felt like hours as Richard's mind worked overtime. He knew William Hartford rarely visited the dealership anymore, having trusted him with complete control. The old man only appeared for major events or serious problems. The fact he was coming now meant something significant was happening. "This is ridiculous. I don't care who you called. You're still trespassing." Richard tried to regain control, but his voice lacked conviction. Sweat dripped down his forehead, despite the cool temperature. His expensive suit felt tight and uncomfortable as anxiety took hold. Marcus remained calm, studying the people around him. He noticed which employees looked worried, probably the ones who had treated customers badly before. Others seemed almost relieved, as if they had been waiting for someone to challenge the current system. The dynamics of 15 years were unraveling in minutes. A young female employee approached nervously. "Mr. Stevenson, should I prepare the conference room for Mr. Hartford?" Her question made Richard realize this was really happening. The owner was actually coming. His throat felt dry as he nodded, unable to form words. The next 10 minutes passed in tense silence. Richard paced back and forth while Marcus stood peacefully by the car. Customers had given up pretending to shop and openly watched the drama. Some left quietly, not wanting to be involved. Others stayed fascinated by the power struggle playing out. Finally, a black town car pulled up outside. Everyone turned to watch as William Hartford emerged, helped by his driver. The elderly man walked slowly but purposefully toward the dealership entrance. His presence commanded respect despite his age. Richard straightened his tie one last time, preparing to explain his side of the story. William Hartford entered the dealership with slow, deliberate steps. At 78 years old, he still commanded respect with his dignified presence. His white hair was neatly combed, and his simple gray suit looked expensive without being flashy. Everyone in the showroom turned to watch him enter. His blue eyes immediately found Marcus standing by the sports car. A warm smile spread across his weathered face as he walked directly toward the young man. Richard rushed forward, trying to intercept his boss, but Hartford raised his hand, stopping him without words. "Marcus, my boy, you're early. I thought we agreed to meet this afternoon." Hartford's voice was warm and familiar. He reached out to shake Marcus's hand with genuine affection. The gesture sent shockwaves through the watching crowd, especially Richard, who stood frozen in disbelief. "I decided to come early and see how things operate on a normal day, Mr. Hartford." Marcus smiled respectfully at the old man. "I've certainly learned a lot about the current management style here." His words were carefully chosen, but the meaning was clear to everyone listening. Hartford's expression turned serious as he looked around the showroom. He noticed the security guards, the nervous employees, and the way Richard stood apart from everyone else. Years of business experience told him something significant had happened before his arrival. His sharp mind was still quick despite his age. "Richard, come here, please." Hartford's tone was calm but firm. The manager approached slowly like a child called to the principal's office. His earlier confidence had completely vanished, replaced by fear and confusion. "Would you care to explain what's been happening here?" Richard's mouth opened and closed several times before words came out. "Mr. Hartford, this gentleman was causing a disturbance. He refused to follow dealership policies and made threats when asked to leave." His voice cracked as he spoke, trying to justify his actions. Hartford listened without interrupting, then turned to Marcus. "Is this accurate?" Marcus shook his head slightly. "I came to look at cars and was told I didn't belong here. When I tried to sit in one vehicle, Mr. Stevenson called security to have me removed." The old man's eyes narrowed as he processed this information. He had built this dealership from nothing 40 years ago. It had been his life's work, creating a place where quality and service mattered above all else. Hearing about discrimination in his business clearly upset him. "Richard, I'm very disappointed. This is not how we treat people at Premier Motors." Hartford's voice carried the weight of decades of authority. "I've been watching the security footage from my office at home. Technology is wonderful these days. I can see everything that happens here." Richard's face went completely white. He hadn't known about remote access to security cameras. His mind raced through everything he had said and done in the past hour. The discriminatory comments, the angry gestures, the abuse of power, all had been recorded and watched. Hartford turned to address the entire showroom. "Everyone, please gather around. I have an important announcement." Employees and customers moved closer, forming a circle. Some pulled out phones to record, expecting something major. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. "As many of you know, I've been considering retirement for some time. This dealership has been my life, but it's time for new leadership." Hartford paused for effect, looking at each face. "I spent months searching for the right person to carry on our legacy." Richard straightened slightly, hoping against hope that his 15 years of service would be rewarded. He had always assumed he would take over when Hartford retired. It was understood by everyone, or so he thought. His hands clenched and unclenched nervously. "I'd like you all to meet Marcus Thompson." Hartford placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "As of this morning, he is the new owner of Premier Motors. The sale was finalized yesterday, and all paperwork has been completed. Marcus has built several successful businesses and shares my vision for what this dealership should be." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard's legs seemed to give out, and he grabbed a nearby chair for support. Other employees gasped or whispered to each other. The security guards looked embarrassed, realizing they had almost forcibly removed the new owner. The moment was historic for Premier Motors. Richard Stevenson's world crumbled in that moment. His mouth hung open as he stared at Marcus, then at Mr. Hartford, then back at Marcus. The reality of what had just happened hit him like a physical blow. He had just discriminated against and tried to throw out his new boss. This can't be right. There must be some mistake. Richard's voice was barely a whisper. His legs shook as he held onto the chair for support. 15 years of power and authority had vanished in seconds. The employees he had commanded now looked at him with a mixture of pity and satisfaction. Marcus stood quietly, letting the moment sink in for everyone. He had learned long ago that silence could be more powerful than words. The employees who had witnessed the earlier confrontation began to understand the full scope of what they had seen. Their former manager had shown his true character. "There's no mistake, Richard." Hartford's voice was firm but sad. "I've been planning this transition for months. Marcus has proven himself as a successful businessman who values fairness and equality. Those are the principles I built this dealership on, though it seems they've been forgotten." Derek, the young salesman who had first approached Marcus, looked terrified. He remembered every dismissive word and gesture he had used. His face turned red as he realized he had treated the new owner like a criminal. Other employees had similar expressions of worry and regret. "Mr. Thompson, I sincerely apologize for my behavior." Derek stepped forward with shaking hands. "I was following what I thought were company policies, but I realize now how wrong I was." His apology seemed genuine, born from fear of losing his job, but also real shame. Marcus nodded acknowledgement, but didn't respond immediately. He was studying each person's reaction, filing away mental notes about who might be worth keeping. Some employees had been actively discriminatory, while others had simply followed the toxic culture Richard had created. There was a difference. Richard finally found his voice again. "Mr. Hartford, you can't be serious. I've given 15 years to this dealership. I've made it profitable beyond your wildest dreams. You're going to throw all that away for him?" The last word dripped with the same prejudice he had shown earlier. Hartford's face hardened at Richard's tone. "That attitude right there is exactly why this change is necessary. Yes, you've made money, but at what cost? How many customers have you turned away based on their appearance? How many talented employees have left because of your management style?" The accusation hung heavy in the air. Several employees nodded slightly, remembering colleagues who had quit after conflicts with Richard. The dealership had always had high turnover, except for those who learned to copy Richard's discriminatory practices. The toxic culture ran deep. "I was protecting our brand, maintaining standards." Richard's defense sounded weak even to his own ears. "This is a luxury dealership, not a public charity. We have to be selective about our clientele." He looked around for support, but found only averted eyes. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. "Mr. Stevenson, what you call standards, I call discrimination. You judged me by my clothes, not my character. You assumed I couldn't afford these cars without knowing anything about me. That's not good business, it's prejudice." The truth of those words resonated through the showroom. Even customers who had benefited from the preferential treatment looked uncomfortable. They recognized the unfairness, even if they had never spoken against it. The silence that followed was heavy with collective guilt. "I built my businesses by treating every customer with respect, regardless of their appearance." Marcus continued, addressing everyone now. A young tech entrepreneur in a hoodie might buy 10 cars for his startup team. An elderly woman in simple clothes might be shopping for her successful grandchildren. You never know who walks through those doors. Hartford smiled proudly at Marcus's words. This was exactly why he had chosen him as successor. Beyond the financial success, Marcus understood that business was ultimately about people. Treating everyone with dignity wasn't just morally right, it was smart business practice. Richard slumped in defeat. His worldview had been shattered completely. Everything he believed about running a successful dealership was being challenged. The employees he had trained to judge and discriminate were now judging him. The irony was bitter and complete. Marcus walked to the center of the showroom, where everyone could see him clearly. His casual clothes no longer seemed out of place, but rather showed confidence in who he was. He didn't need expensive suits to command respect. His actions and words did that naturally. "I want everyone to understand something important." Marcus's voice carried through the space, reaching every corner. "This dealership is entering a new era starting today. The days of judging customers by their appearance are over. We will treat every person who walks through those doors with equal respect." Richard stood up shakily from his chair. "So I'm fired then?" After 15 years of dedicated service, his voice mixed anger with desperation. The thought of losing his position was unbearable. This job had defined his entire identity and sense of self-worth. Marcus turned to face him directly. "Mr. Stevenson, I haven't decided your future yet. That will depend on whether you can adapt to our new values. For now, you're demoted to senior sales associate. You'll work the floor like everyone else and learn what it means to serve all customers equally." The demotion hit Richard like a slap. From general manager to regular salesperson was a massive fall. His salary would be cut significantly, and he would report to whoever Marcus appointed as the new manager. The humiliation was complete, but at least he still had a job. "This is outrageous. I won't stand for this treatment." Richard's face flushed red again. "I'll sue for wrongful demotion. I'll contact my lawyer immediately." He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, trying to maintain some sense of control over the situation. Hartford stepped forward, placing a weathered hand on Richard's shoulder. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Richard. The security footage shows clear discrimination and hostile behavior. Any lawsuit would only expose your actions to public scrutiny. Think about your reputation in this industry. The warning was clear and effective. Richard slowly lowered his phone, realizing the trap he was in. Fighting back would only make things worse. His shoulders sagged in defeat as the reality of his new position sank in. The mighty had truly fallen. Marcus addressed the other employees next. For the rest of you, this is a fresh start. I'll be conducting individual meetings with everyone over the next week. We'll discuss your future here and what changes need to be made. Those who embrace our new culture will thrive. Those who can't will need to find employment elsewhere. A mixture of hope and fear crossed various faces. Some employees felt relief that the old oppressive system was ending. Others worried about their own past behaviors and whether they would be forgiven. The younger staff seemed especially eager for change, having suffered under Richard's rigid hierarchy. "Mr. Thompson, what about our sales targets and commission structures?" A middle-aged salesman asked nervously. Richard had very specific requirements about which customers to focus on. Are those changing too? The question revealed how deeply the discrimination had been built into their daily operations. Everything will be reviewed and revised. Marcus answered firmly. Sales targets will be based on actual performance, not on prejudging customer worth. Commission structures will reward excellent service to all clients equally. We're going to prove that inclusivity is not just right, but profitable. Hartford beamed with pride at Marcus's words. This is exactly the vision I had when I started this dealership 40 years ago. Somewhere along the way we lost sight of those values. I'm grateful to see them being restored by the next generation of leadership. The old man turned to Richard one last time. I hope you'll take this opportunity to learn and grow. You have sales talent, but your prejudices have held you back. Working under Marcus's leadership might be the best thing that ever happened to your career. Richard couldn't meet Hartford's eyes. The shame of his actions was finally sinking in. He had let power corrupt him, turning him into someone who judged others by superficial standards. Now he would have to face those same judgments from below instead of above. Marcus pulled out his phone and made several quick calls. I'm bringing in my transition team this afternoon. We'll start implementing changes immediately. By next week, Premier Motors will be a completely different dealership, one that welcomes everyone who loves beautiful cars regardless of their background. The employees dispersed, slowly processing everything that had happened. Some whispered excitedly about the promised changes, while others worried about their job security. The security guards apologized again to Marcus before returning to their posts. The transformation of Premier Motors had officially begun. 3 months passed since Marcus Thompson took ownership of Premier Motors. The dealership looked the same from outside, but everything inside had changed dramatically. The cars still gleamed under crystal chandeliers, but the atmosphere felt completely different, welcoming instead of intimidating. Marcus arrived early each morning before any employees. He liked walking through the quiet showroom, remembering that first day when Richard had tried to throw him out. Now the same space buzzed with positive energy as diverse customers explored their dream cars without judgment. The staff had transformed remarkably under new leadership. Derek Peterson, the young salesman who had first dismissed Marcus, now served as assistant manager. His genuine apology and eagerness to change had impressed Marcus. Derek treated every customer with equal enthusiasm, whether they wore designer suits or simple clothes. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson." Derek greeted Marcus with real warmth. "Yesterday was our best sales day ever." Mrs. Chen bought the limited edition sports car, and 3 college students purchased their first luxury vehicles. They said they felt comfortable here, unlike other dealerships. Marcus smiled at the report. "That's what happens when you treat people with respect, Derek." Word spreads quickly in the community. Our reputation for fairness has become our strongest selling point. He was proud of how quickly the young man had embraced change. Richard Stevenson worked quietly at his desk in the corner. His demotion to sales associate had been humiliating but educational. For the first time in 15 years, he experienced how it felt to be judged and dismissed. Some customers recognized him and enjoyed seeing the former manager in a humble position. At first, Richard had struggled terribly. His prejudices were so deeply ingrained that he couldn't hide them. Marcus had to counsel him repeatedly about his attitude. Slowly, painfully, Richard began to see customers as individuals rather than stereotypes. His sales improved as his perspective changed. "Stevenson, can you help Mr. Williams with the financing paperwork?" Marcus called across the showroom. Richard jumped up immediately, no trace of his former arrogance. "Of course, Mr. Thompson, right away." He hurried to assist a customer he would have ignored before. The dealership's success under Marcus exceeded everyone's expectations. Sales increased 40% in 3 months. Customer satisfaction scores reached record highs. Employee turnover dropped to almost zero as staff morale soared. The toxic culture Richard had created was completely gone. Marcus held weekly team meetings where everyone could share ideas regardless of their position. He implemented profit sharing so all employees benefited from the dealership's success. Training programs taught cultural sensitivity and customer service excellence. The changes were comprehensive and effective. "I never thought I'd say this, but thank you." Richard approached Marcus during a quiet moment. His hair had more gray now, and his face showed genuine humility. "You taught me lessons I should have learned years ago. I'm ashamed of how I treated people, including you." Marcus studied the older man carefully. "People can change, Richard, if they truly want to. You've made real progress these past months. Keep growing, and you might surprise yourself with who you become." He offered an encouraging nod before moving on. William Hartford visited monthly to see the transformation he had enabled. The elderly man glowed with satisfaction watching customers of all backgrounds receive excellent service. His legacy was secure knowing Marcus had restored the values he'd originally built the business on. "You've exceeded my wildest hopes, Marcus," Hartford said during one visit. "This place feels alive again, full of possibility and promise. Thank you for showing everyone that success and kindness can go hand in hand. The industry needs more leaders like you." The story of Premier Motors' transformation spread throughout the business community. Other dealerships studied their inclusive model, trying to replicate the success. Marcus received speaking invitations to share his philosophy of respectful business practices. He had started a movement bigger than one dealership. On the anniversary of that first day, Marcus stood in the same spot where Richard had confronted him. The sports car still gleamed nearby, but now customers of all backgrounds sat in it freely. He smiled, remembering how far they'd all come, especially Richard, who sold more cars through kindness than he ever had through discrimination.